Hello, party people. Welcome back to the Emo Coin live stream series. Um, just me this week. I'm just chilling. Uh, just thought I could talk a little bit about just production in general. What the environment was like when I started producing, and what it sort of evolved into, and where do I see it going. When I started, we recorded on tape. I started on tape, and then moved into Pro Tools pretty quickly, and have really spent most of my time in Pro Tools and Logic until recently, when we all went online, and started doing some stuff online. So I was still in Pro Tools and Logic, but you know the rooms have shifted over time, and a lot is changing and a lot has changed along the way, but there are some things that remain the same. And I see sessions all the time where this is where people get the vibe right, and I see sessions where people don't get the vibe right, and it really makes all the difference in the world whether you're in a room or online. And one thing that I think is really important to remember is how to keep the flow going. So, like back in the day, when we used to record on tape, I think there's a lot of reasons that people are nostalgic for those days and talk about how great everything sounded, and what a great experience being in the studio was at the time of those classic records being made. And I've thought a lot about that because I started on tape, and like, technically, tape totally was not fun to work with at all. In my opinion, the actual, working a tape machine and biasing a tape machine and making sure the tape machine was acting correctly and making sure it was routed correctly, and trying to punch a little section of guitar, and you have to like press the buttons before, like just a split second before the punch, and then you have to press the buttons like a split second like before you want the punch to stop. Like, you really have to anticipate the way the tape machine's going to react. Like, it was pretty stressful, to be completely frank. Wasn't that fun. And so I and obviously there's a sonic thing we all look back to, cymbals, vocals, like a lot of things sounded really good on tape, and I get it. But I don't know, with today's technology, I think sonically we're either have surpassed the sound or we're close enough to representing it. So I've done a lot of soul searching recently, like what is it that we all liked about that time? And I think it was the hang. I think it was going into a studio, everybody's got their roles clear. Like, the guitar player wasn't expected to run the tape machine or any of the mic stuff. That was an engineer. The producer was expected to, evaluate takes and give little tips along the way. The singer went to the mic and sang. Like, everybody had these clearly defined roles, and it made for an environment where people were really laid back and people could really just have fun during the process. So I look back at my early days and I go, okay, that was great. And one thing that was important at that time that's still important now, that I think people have lost sight of a little bit as we get into computers, is just the being able to keep the flow going in those days of creative energy. Everybody's in the same room, everybody's got instruments. If you're asking somebody to change something, you're not saying, hey, let me like tweak on my Pro Tools for like 10 or 15 minutes while you watch me run a computer. And then I expect you to be like, you know, ready to rock. Like, you know, the that that kind of thing wasn't there. It was just like everybody's chilling, kind of partying, and so it was kind of nice. And so when I look back and think like, what are people really nostalgic for? I think it was vibe, and I think that's what people like being in the studio for. So as it turned into Pro Tools and Logic and stuff like that, like I have found over the years that like still I don't think it's fun for artists and musicians to like sit there while you're like editing. You know what I mean? Like some of my friends are great musicians and great editors that are in bands, and that's cool, and we can nerd out together and stuff like that, but not everybody in the band is going to enjoy that. So you're going to lose people. People are going to walk out the room, and then you're getting less vibe and less hang and less creativity and more just like computer, goofball stuff. And I've always found that like musicians tend to be a little bit like, I don't know if impatient's the right word, but like really we tend to be like very vibe oriented. So if I'm like ready to like throw down, and you're my producer and you're sitting there going, hey, hold on, I gotta dial in a sound, or you know like I gotta cut up some beats, or just whatever, like it's gonna like make it less fun for me as the musician. You know what I mean? So I think what I've found over the years is that instead of like having to find the exact right perfect guitar sound and the perfect vocal sound, and everything dialed and my amps mic'd perfectly, and I've measured my phase between my microphones, like by the time I've done all that stuff, like who wants to rock? And you've wasted a whole bunch of time. Like these days, just in order to keep the flow going, let's think about like what is important. How do we keep it being a hang? Like how do we keep it being fun for the musician, and how do we make sure that they don't lose their creative spark while you're like beat detectiving some drum track? And this is just common sense stuff. Like if I was going to do a guitar, if I'm going to record guitars for somebody these days, like I'll just like throw on like Logic's plugins or something, like like this is just like a normal, super dirty, and there's all sorts of cool stuff in here. It's not like, oh my god, like that's the best sound in the world, but it's like it's fine, and there's no latency. You want to make sure that like low latency mode can deal with whatever you're throwing on here. You know what I mean? And like there's enough sounds. That one's kind of goofy, but time to shred. It's fine. Like, I don't know. It's not like the best guitar sound I've ever heard, but as long as I'm using the right guitar, I'm going to capture a DI when I record, and then I'm going to reamp it later anyway. So it's like, I've got a musician in the studio, they want to show me an idea, and then they want to record it. Like, I'm not going to tell them, like, hey, can you wait, like, 25 minutes while I set up a Royer and, like, do all this stuff? Like, I'll just be like, yo, let's go. And then we'll just set up the Royers and all the nerdy stuff later. We'll just reamp it. Also, what's cool about doing it that way is I've got a DI. which means I can cut it up and edit it and do all this crazy stuff to it in the computer, and then I just reamp that, and it's done, and it's a better performance anyway, right? And the cool thing is I didn't bum out that guitar player. They got to do what they were inspired to do, and you captured that feeling, that inspired feeling, because that's the hardest thing to capture. And then you do all your editing later. So, that for me is a continuation of what I learned during my tape days of just like this should be fun for everybody at all times and feel like a great creative space for everybody at all times, or else your result could suffer. I personally think the best results come from being like really like creative, everybody feeling like they're at their best, and nobody doing too much to dampen that spirit and keep people kind of upbeat. With singers, I mean, same thing. It's like, okay, set up a nice mic, right? I oftentimes actually use a slate mic so I can even change the cardioid pattern later. You know what I mean? Like figure that stuff out later. If I'm going to do like a vocal, you know, I'll probably just use like some logic setting, for compression and one thing for singers is I think that they really like to hear a lot of compression when they're tracking. So like quick and dirty, somebody's got an idea. I've had really really talented artists be like in the control room with me and be like, I got this thing, right? And I go, okay, cool. And they sing it to me, and I'll look down at my Logic or Pro Tools to like start making a beat or get something, throw a guitar track down. And that singer could already be in the booth, like they're ready to go. And so I can't like then shoot out 16 different mics and like audition this 1176 versus that 1176 like like sometimes we do and we get nerdy. It's like, no, just get that performance right. So I'll go, what is it, setting voice. The cool one is this one, slammed vocal. Don't ask me why, but it's just cool. It just sounds awesome. And Logic sets this up as a group. So it's like this group with a folder. So the actual plugins and stuff are on this guy. And it's just a classic like two compressor trick. They actually have three compressors. They put this on a vocal, which is weird, but it sounds cool. It's guitar pedals. And then the de-esser comes with it turned off. So like if somebody wants to tune on their vocal, I'll just throw like the quick and dirty auto tune, like the this guy, like the EFX, and you set it to whatever, and you're ready to go. The thing that I like about auto tune effects, well, not everybody even tracks with tune, but if you're going to track with tune, the thing I like about it is that I'm still in low latency mode, and even with a few instances, like you can get maybe one auto tune pro up in low latency mode, but if you've got a bunch of tracks, like you won't be able to have that much juice in the auto tune section. So it's like you got to go auto tune EFX or like I believe the Logic, does the Logic pitch, the one that comes with it, yep, that looks like it works in low latency mode too. And it's like, just do that, right? And right there, that setting, slammed vocal, like your singer's gonna be happy, I'm happy. Of course I have to adjust the pre a little bit, like there has to be some sound checking, but get as little of that as possible. You want as little time between the idea and the person going to execute it as possible, because you want to capture that creative energy. And again, this likens back to my tape days of just like everybody having fun, feeling good, and nobody being inhibited by the process, right? And so, as production techniques have evolved, I've tried to retain that. So starting on tape, it's all vibe, right? Sonically very difficult. You can't get granular. You can't, track a bunch of stuff and then edit it and then reamp it. Like it's tape was difficult. You really had to get the sound right and you had to do some stuff, right? But, once you're there, everybody's just having fun. The in-person experience, I just find if I have people in my studio, like they don't want to watch me like run the computer, like they want to play, and that's what I want to do too. And I'll just do the editing either on my own time, or we've captured a bunch of stuff, everybody's stoked, and then it's like, hey guys, like chill and like let's hang and kick back and like you guys can grab food or something like that. But I'm now going to go into Melodyne and be detective and do all the nerd stuff. The reason I mention all this stuff is because I think most people have this down. I think most people intuitively get what I'm saying, right? And are doing pretty well in terms of keeping the vibe light and keeping people creative. But where it's really, really fallen apart, in my opinion, is online, right? And, the online paradigm, some people have had success with it, some people have not. Um, but it's here to stay. It's a reality. Even, with fluctuating pandemic levels and stuff like that, like obviously when you're in lockdown, you need to work online. But even there's other reasons to do it. I found the online paradigm really powerful because I'm writing with bands in Australia and UK, and I'm still here chilling in DC, and I'm not even don't even have to wear shoes or whatever. You know what I mean? And so the online paradigm is really powerful. It's just what I find is people are hating on it in some instances, especially with Zoom and then that audio movers plugin, like that has fallen short for people because it's so glitchy and unreliable, right? The Zoom thing's a bummer sometimes because you get on, right? And the minute, like, you can have a great hang with somebody on a video chat, and then the minute you go to like play something or sing something or whatever, like it's like the sound is gone, sound ducks, right? And I think that like once you've, like I said, musicians are really impatient. So like once you've like lost somebody's vibe, especially if they're on video chat and they're chilling in their own place, like it's gone. And I've seen it happen a lot on people's video chats where it's like everybody's feeling good and everybody's stoked to write, and then you go, hey, I got this something like some tune, and then it just ducks, and the audio completely disappears, and you see people going like, oh man, I really want to hear what you're playing on guitar, but I can't. And then that 15-second like gut punch, that just kills everybody's creativity. So how do we retain that hangout vibe from the tape days that has also permeated the in-person, computer recording paradigm? How do we take that vibe and put it into the online paradigm? And this is a question that I've asked myself a bunch of times. I've had a bunch of discussions with other friends about it, and like it is the hardest thing to do. I think what we really need to learn is that if you just like take a second to like make sure before any online session that you have like a high quality audio video connection for your DAW, I think this is a big help. You know what I mean? Easier said than done. I co-founded a company called Entangled Audio so that we could build our own, so that we could give people a better, easier, like push button utility so that you could do this exact thing, right? So like when I do an online session, the Zoom is the Zoom, and then I'm not trying to like stuff my Logic or Pro Tools screen into that Zoom, because as we all know, like, it glitches out. It doesn't work perfectly. It could work 1 out of 10 times or something like that. It's awesome. And I try it every once in a while. I'm like, oh, it worked today, and it's great. But most of the time, it doesn't work. So me and the co-founders of Entangled Audio set out to build a better tool. And what I've had success with it, the reason why it's cool and the reason why I love it is because when I do an online session, I am 100% looking to capture that hang vibe. Even though it's online, right? I'm telling you now, from whatever, 15 months of experience, 16 months of experience, or whatever, I think it's been even longer since I've been like doing a lot of online sessions and using the Entangled Audio software to do it. There are ways to create vibiness and magic, even though you're on video chat, and it has to do with the same fundamentals. And really, that fundamental is about dead time. It's about, when we were in the tape days, very little dead time, as I said before, right? In the computer paradigm, where everybody's in the studio, but you're behind a computer, it's up to you. Like, I have plenty of other producer friends who will just sit there and edit in front of everybody, and everybody's watching the Melodyne, and everybody's watching the Beat Detective, and then somebody goes out and plays drums, and then everybody takes 2 hours to watch a producer like Beat Detective. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, I've seen some good sessions that way. I tend to still not do that. I tend to be like, yo, like, let's track 6 songs of drums and worry about it later. And then if you missed a fill in song 2 that I can't edit, go back out and just punch it. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? But like, I think the drummer gets in a groove, right? And by song 4, like, they're killing it. And song 4 takes way less time than song 1, and it's a great feeling. So like, that's a choice, right? If you've got people in the studio, it's up to you to keep the vibe going, right? Online, it's up to you and some tools, and you have to be really crafty, and you have to remember that people really, the default position when writers and artists get on these video chat like Zooms and stuff like that, like, they don't like it, because they've had that like terrible online experience, you know what I mean? And so as producers and writers now, we're at a deficit. We're starting at like a place where it's like the vibe is already a little tenuous. So it's like, what is the ideal online session, in my opinion, right? Is like, how do you make sure that vibe is there? It's like, set your stuff up ahead of time. I do it with Entangled. Maybe some other people have some other methods, but like, make sure like people could see your screen. Make sure like people can hear your stuff and that it sounds pretty good. You know what I mean? And then like, keep people moving really, really quickly throughout their stuff. I have gotten it to a point now where, like, even online, I feel like I'm in a control room, and the artists that I'm working with feel like they're in a booth. It's trippy, and what's cool about it is that once you've established that, right, then you have gotten everybody past that gut punch, 15 seconds in, audio ducked out moment that is so defeating. Once you get past that, and once you've demonstrated clearly to people that all they had to do was click a link to, for me, it's like they click a link, they go to the Entangled site, and it's like the DAW's there, the sound quality's there. They don't have to do anything. There's no, oh, how do I plug this in? Or there's no burden on them at all. It's dialed, right? And I have that set up ahead of time. And once musicians and artists are like, oh, this is great. It sounds awesome. It looks awesome. I feel like I'm in the studio. All that online anxiety tends to go away. And then it's the most fascinating thing, because then people are just talking about the music, and I get this little like thing in the back of my head that goes like, yeah, they're not worried about it anymore. They're not doing tech support. They're not worried about me. They're just telling me what's the idea in their head, and we're here executing it and trying to just make it awesome. And so it's just a very interesting um, perspective that I feel like I've been lucky enough to take on over the years that I've taken recording more seriously, which is I started on tape. That was It was given that there was vibe. You're in a studio, you have to go to a studio. You don't have a choice, right? You're there. You've got a tape machine. You don't have like a some Pro Tools apparatus that you can really fix things later. So it's like you have to be feeling it. You have to enjoy it. You know what I mean? And look to capture that raw emotion. And then, I have found success in person even through the computer paradigm, keeping that spirit alive of just like, let's keep it fun, let's keep it chill, and let's keep it not about nerd stuff, right? And then the online success that I feel like I've had, that I really, really am trying to promote and share with the larger production community and the larger music based community, is at all costs, no matter what you have to do, keep that vibe, and keep that workflow going. Don't expect to open up some session that has like 6,000 tracks and 5,000 auto tunes and expect that to go through a Zoom or something without breaking everything in its path and bumming out your co-writer. Like it's like, use a really lean session, use Logic plugins, like do stuff that's like really, really lean, right? So that you're not challenging the paradigm. It's not ready for that. It's a new paradigm. We're on a new frontier, but it's become vital to all of our success to be able to capitalize on that new paradigm. I have a lot of friends who are just ignoring the paradigm completely. Totally get it. You know what I mean? I totally get it's frustrating. I totally get that you don't want your musicians to have to go through tech support and stuff like that, which is great. I'm saying don't make them go through tech support. Don't make them learn anything else. Everybody's learned how to get on a Zoom and talk about music. And so it's like, let's put the music in a place where it sounds just as good and feels just as good as it does in the studio. Start there, and you're going to have a much, much better result in terms of what is the bottom line. We're trying to make tunes. We're trying to capture magic. We're trying to make something special no matter where we are, whether we're on tape, we're in a studio, or we're online. Like, it's really just about the vibes between people. And so I just say it because this all seems pretty intuitive. It seems logical to keep the vibe front and center, but I see other things all the time. I see people in the studio all the time just bumming people out, especially like you've got a singer that's like super warmed up, and I've seen engineers and producers be like, "Oh, that was awesome. Like, give me a second. Let me just mellow down and vocal line that just to make sure it's cool, and then we'll get to like the second verse." And the singer, who's done like 30 minutes of warm-ups and like, vapored and like do all this stuff to be ready, is just standing there. And I'm just like, how could you let a singer just stand there? Like, they want to sing, and it's a fleeting thing. It's a very of the moment thing, whether you're going to capture a magic performance or just like an okay performance. And so I say it because it seems simple, but I watch people fumble this ball all the time. And I think it's important as we look to a future where a producer really has to be good at any of these paradigms. Like sometimes you're in the studio, sometimes the artist wants to record in a organic live way like they would on tape. Probably not on tape, but sometimes they want that vibe, right? You got to be able to capture that. If you're in a different setting where people are, you know, overdubbing, that's cool, but like keep the vibe alive. Do your editing in a different block, like keep everybody happy. And then especially online, and this is where it's becoming crucial and becoming really elusive, is like keep the vibe alive, like keep it fun. It is, in my opinion, your job as a producer to keep things vibey, to keep things fun. And I've known people who have done that because like by lighting candles and creating ambiance or like whatever, like part of it. You know what I mean? I know people who run the party. You know what I mean? And it's fun, and it's whether people drink or like whatever, like that's cool. Sometimes producer has to do that to like keep everybody, just feeling good because we really want to capture that emotion. And then online, I mean, it is so difficult. So my advice is keep things really, like get things set up before you're going to start the session. Once you're in that session, even if something is just terrible on your end, if you're just like freaking out and like something looks broken to you, as long as you know that whatever you're tracking is going to work, like the actual sonics of it are going to work, and that the most importantly that the artist on the other side or the musician on the other side is, you can tell when they're having a good time, and when it could be broken for you but not broken for them. You really you really have to keep everybody happy, I think. And I do think it's on the producer to make sure that you're leading everybody in that direction. So i, I just wanted to sort of weigh in because the future is going to be mixed in terms of where we get to record these things. There's obvious challenges with pandemic that makes travel more difficult. I think that publishing companies and stuff like that, they're going to front less money for writers to travel too, because the online paradigm, as it becomes more acceptable, like it exists and it can save people a lot of money. And I know a lot of writers and producers who fly around too on their own, at their own expense, and you're going to want to cut those expenses down too. So the online paradigm becomes this amazing solution as long as we're using it correctly and figuring out ways to make it sound better and look better and be easier for people to operate. I think that it's possible to keep it fun and to come up with great results and write great songs. So the bottom line is, can we make sure that we keep the artist's happiness front and center no matter where we are, what we're doing? For me, the key is to not encumber their workflow with a bunch of stuff that you can do later. And that, I think, is something that can be a very powerful tool no matter where you are. Whether or not you're recording some multi-platinum whatever singer, they're potentially impatient, just as your brand new artist that's never had a breakthrough may also, not be the most patient or want to watch you do your stuff. You know what I mean? They want to do what they're good at, and your job is to capture that and do your stuff when you can. It could be 2 days later, doesn't matter, right? If you got magic that you captured, edit till the live long day. That's awesome. If you're editing as you go, you may never get that magic. And then who knows, right? Maybe the song could have been stronger. Maybe the album could have done better, and you're always going to wonder why. So, bottom line, keep the vibe alive. And that's sort of my message here with this solo emo coin discussion. We're gonna be doing a lot of stuff with emo coin in 2022. I'm really, really excited, and I just have been overwhelmed by the response from you guys in the community, and I'm really grateful that we're all embracing this new technology that we're talking about and these new ways of connecting people through music. And I'm looking forward to comments, questions, feedback, and building this community and talking further as we move forward. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.